Yeah, we're talking about orgasms today.
We're talking about orgasms, and I tell people that they can definitely put a question in the comments because it's such a wide subject, and we
Yeah,
definitely won't, be able to handle everything.
yeah.
Um, but I know that
Yeah,
I've
so the more
gotten,
specific questions we can get from folks watching would be great
yeah,
today.
yeah. I did get a question that says, I can't seem to come with my partner, but I can come on my
Mm-hmm.
own without any other details. But I know what I
Okay.
would say. What would you say?
So I would say that it's really common.
Hmm.
And I would say after mismatched libidos, it's the second most common problem that people see a sex therapist for.
Mm-hmm.
Because because actually orgasming with a partner is there's a lot of moving parts, no pun intended, and because it's really about having the right conditions met for the orgasm to happen, because when we're by ourselves it's pretty easy to meet those conditions because it's just us. There's no performance anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
There's no incentive to worry about, is the other person having a good time? Am I having a good time? Can the neighbors hear me? Well, maybe actually with masturbation you can
And
be
also,
concerned.
where we know where we like to be touched, usually when we're masturbating,
Yeah,
so we
exactly.
know what works for us.
Exactly. And then with another person, there's just a lot more going on. And I think sometimes too that, that feeling of, is it going to happen this time, can make us feel anxious.
Mm-hmm.
And then for a lot of us, when we feel anxious, we tend to want to rush and we want to get it over with.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're rushing to get something over with, then
Usually
we're
not
not
enjoyable.
slowing, yeah, we're not slowing down and savoring. It's like, when you're really, really hungry and you're just like, and I want to eat everything, which is what I did last night, by the way. But it's not necessarily satisfying because you're so hungry that you can't actually taste the food that's
Yeah.
going into your mouth. And
Yeah.
and sometimes, as an anxiety response, rushing through sex just to get it over with so you can, not because it feels good, but
No.
because the anxiety is a lot to handle. Um, that is often one of the key reasons that people struggle with orgasm. And
Yeah.
I guess I also just want to really affirm for people there are very few people on the planet who physiologically cannot orgasm. So if anybody's watching and thinking, I can't orgasm by myself, and I can't orgasm with a partner, I just can't orgasm ever, it's very, very rare for someone who has absolutely no orgasmic capabilities. So if you're thinking that you're one of these people who cannot, um, it's possible, but it's very, very unlikely. Those
Mm-hmm.
people are very, very rare.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, and also I think when we
Hi,
are,
Mexico.
hi Mexico.
Someone's.
I think when we're with a partner too, and the anxiety is going on about this, that, or the other thing. I know certainly for body image, I will tell people, name the elephant in the room,
Mm,
and so if you are worried about not orgasming with the partner, you can have that conversation with your partner and say, you know what, I might not orgasm, so why don't we
yeah,
just have a good time,
yeah,
and really try and come to terms with the fact that sex is so much more than just the orgasm.
yeah,
And so instead of putting all that pressure on yourself, why not just take it off the table and just enjoy yourself?
yeah,
And I think you might be surprised at some point, who knows? And
yeah,
also show your partner how you like to be touched if that isn't a thing that's happened. So,
yeah. That's a lot of the kind of those extra little bits and pieces that, if when you slow down, you have more time to show and tell,
yeah.
and and again, I mean, also we know that statistically, the research confirms that especially in hookups and one night stands between cis women and cis men, overwhelmingly cis women do not come. And there's a lot of reasons for it.
Yeah.
The main one is that the overwhelming emphasis on intercourse, penis in vagina intercourse, really stymies any opportunity for the vagina haver to have an orgasm, because again, overwhelmingly, not exclusively, but overwhelmingly, vagina having women do not orgasm from intercourse alone. It's just how the bodies work. You know, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing weird, there's nothing strange, you know. And so it's really helpful if we start having conversations about if orgasm is going to be the thing that we're doing. This is especially in hookups and one night stands. What makes it happen, and bring out toys. Like if having an orgasm matters to you, which is cool, bring out toys. And it's not about emasculating anybody or any of those things. It's just, you know, we know statistically that cis women don't come much during those sorts of situations, and toys will help us get there.
Yeah. And it's a different sensation than we would get with someone else. So it's not a competition. It's just, you know, sometimes I like modern art and sometimes I like expressionist or impressionist art. And, you know, I like all different kinds of art, but sometimes I'm in the mood for,
exactly.
I don't know, Kandinsky or something.
Exactly.
So
I'm just going to scroll through some of these comments.
Oh, good.
And see if there's anybody's putting in questions. Someone loves us. That's nice. And
nice. Always nice to be loved.
It's very nice to be loved, but no questions yet.
Here is something, and maybe you can verify for me that this is either true or not true. Is people, you know, cis women or anyone with a vagina who wants to squirt or ejaculate, who has not been able to. I have learned that everyone has the ability to do it physically, but not everyone does. And that sometimes you may be doing it and not even know it, because we have been brought up to see what that is in porn, where it's just squirting, and that's just doesn't really happen that often. You can squirt and not know it, but your partner might know it, or
your Nonsense is here. Hi, darling.
Who is?
Your Nonsense, Todd from Your Nonsense.
Oh, Athens. Hi, Athens. So is that true that everyone has the ability? Anyone with a vagina has the ability to do it, but not everybody does.
I think the jury is out on that, because it's still unclear exactly where and how the squirt mechanism works. What we do know is that there is a swelling of the glands that wrap around the urethra. So the Skene's glands hold, well, because there's two parts to this. There's the Skene's glands that hold the ejaculate fluid inside, and then but the squirt fluid, which is much more watery. So the Skene's gland, the ejaculate fluid is thicker and milkier, and that is believed to come from the Skene's glands, which is inside the tissue that wraps around the urethra. The gushing effect, that's you know, much more watery, and it is unclear where that comes from. However, what we do know for sure is that it's not pee, because the composition is different than just regular old pee. Now, to clarify, even if it is pee, frankly, who effing cares? Now, with penis ejaculate, guess what? There's some pee in it, because it comes out of the same hole. But nobody says, is it pee, is it cum, is it this, is it that? There's no big song and dance about what the, you know, what the splashing is. It's just like, woo, splashing. And when it comes out of a willy, everybody's happy about that. But when it comes out of a vulva, people are like, and I would like to invite people to worry about that less and focus a little bit more on, are we having a good time? So back to the squirting thing. The other thing I need to clarify before I explain more about it, a squirt is not an orgasm. Mhm.
Hmm.
For some vulva havers, squirting feels like an ecstatic release. And for some vulva havers, it can coincide with an orgasm.
Hmm.
But for a lot, it is not the same thing. And so when we're watching porn and we see the squirting happen and we see the people going, yeah, I'm coming, it's theater. It's not real. Just like, when you're watching a
Stuntmen.
drive,
Yeah.
action scene and the cars are driving and jumping off cliffs and all that stuff that they do. It's not real, it's just, it's made to look like it's real, but it's for entertainment, and it's fabulous because it's exciting. And it's the same with porn. So it's really useful to understand the difference between squirting and orgasms for vulva havers.
Mhm.
So can everybody squirt? Everybody has the anatomical stuff there unless it's either been surgically removed for some reason, or unless there's been some sort of, um, you know, uh, situation there,
Mhm.
or um, there's some other kind of anatomical situation going on in the pelvis. So
Mhm.
beyond that, everybody has the capacity. Some of the theories are, again, a lot of this is conjecture because there's not any hard evidence. Hard, pardon the pun. Because it's really not at the top of many researchers' funding capacity, because they don't really want to spend a whole lot of money on this, because
No.
you can't sell drugs for this, so it's hard to make money out of it.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we believe stimulates the squirting capacity is the distance from the interior vaginal wall, um, at the front, at the top, so sort of behind the pubic bone, yeah, up in there, and the distance from there to the urethra. Because when you're squishing what's conventionally called the G spot, which in your puppet is represented with the little flowers. So when you're squishing in and up and you're doing this kind of thing, or you're using a steel toy or a glass toy and giving it a bit of the crowbar action, what you're doing is stimulating that squishy tissue, which, if you're aroused, and you have to be aroused, if you're not aroused, everything I'm saying goes out the window,
Yeah.
because it's effectively the same as trying to do some sort of expecting that you're going to have a squishing sensation when you're not fully aroused, regardless of what your genitals are, including penises. So if you're fully aroused or getting on your way to fully aroused, all of that area is going to swell. We call it engorgement. It means that all the blood is rushing to the area, all the fluids are rushing to the area, and then you're better set up to have a squirting experience, which may or may not coincide with an orgasm. It probably will not,
Right.
because generally it doesn't.
Yeah. We did get a question.
Excellent.
Basically what it says is this person just turned 43,
Mm.
and it's getting more difficult to
Welcome to the other
orgasm.
side.
Yeah, exactly. Join the club. We have jackets. Um, she wants to know if the sensitivity of the clit tends to go downhill as one ages, because it's harder for her to orgasm at 43.
Mm. I
Yeah.
don't believe there's any research on it,
Right.
but I do think from discussion and conjecture that there are some physiological shifts that happen with the onset of perimenopause that have yet to be fully researched. So officially, no, but highly likely, yes, because how can there not be? When everything starts shifting in that region, things are gonna start changing. I
Mm-hmm.
don't necessarily think that any changes that occur are permanent. What we do know about perimenopause is that the tissue does start to thin and things do start to shift, not shift like tectonic
Right.
plates shifting, but but just stuff just starts to change. The whole kind of composition of our entire bodies starts to change. And so it's possible that there could be either some hormonal shifts happening that are making sensation harder for you to access. It could be that the vulva, so that the labia and the mons, which is the bit what's got hair on it, if there's hair there or you took it off, could start being a little bit looser in the same way that scrotums get a little bit looser. Sometimes things just get a bit softer and looser down there. And there could be a sensation of the skin just being not as tight as it used to be. But I mean, yes, it might be harder to have an orgasm, but I do believe that this is temporary. I don't think that these things are permanent. And also the thing is too, is that our bodies change as we age. Like, it's just part of the deal. And so how we experienced orgasm in our teens and 20s will be different again in our 30s, but the shifts are a bit more subtle. And then getting into 40s, 50s, and 60s, you start noticing those changes a bit more dramatically because things are changing a bit more dramatically. That said, how your body is at 25 is vastly different to how it is when you're, 3 years old. So that's a pretty dramatic shift too. So, we actually do change a lot as we go through life. It's just that we live in a culture that, fetishizes youth and says, sex is for, young, kind of hard bodies, when most of us spend most of our lives living over 25. Like, we're going to be alive a lot longer post 25 than we are pre 25. So we need to start having a cultural shift about how we see sex and how we experience it and the kinds of things we can do. So the lack of sensitivity that you're experiencing may partially be age related, but it can also just be you getting used to your body. And I would encourage you to masturbate like a banshee. And see what you find. Get some toys, get some lube, try different things.
Yeah. Just like, aging women are so stigmatized. It's stigmatizing and desexualizing. So instead of society telling us, yeah, you change, just like, you might like your clit stimulated when you are 18 and then not like it stimulated when you're 24, and that we change is natural for us to do so. Doesn't mean that we're less sexual. It just means that our bodies, like you were saying, they naturally change, things shift. And when you masturbate, be mindful. Be mindful of where you touch places that you might not have touched before. You might discover the insides of your wrists are really an erogenous zone. Some people have figured out that their nipples can give them an orgasm, So the great thing is, and the exciting thing is that there's so much potential for not just a new way to orgasm, but a new way to find pleasure in your skin as you age. So that's my point, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the key things about orgasming really are that your body needs to be relaxed, not so relaxed that you're comatose, but relaxed enough that you're able to really let yourself go and feel yourself as you are, which again comes back to that thing that sometimes it's easier to orgasm when you're by yourself because you're not worrying about other people, and also your body gets accustomed to a particular set of touches
Rhythms
and strokes and that kind of thing. So, and to mimic that with another person can be difficult. It's not impossible. It just takes practice. A lot of this is really just about practice and repetition and knowing, absolutely knowing in your bones that you're not broken. That's really important.
And making it a priority, that it's a part of your practice as a human being, the self-care of all of it, Some people get in the bathtub with bath salts and candles, and some people masturbate, or some people do both. So
someone here is asking among women that orgasm, what percentage squirts? I don't think there's any statistics about that. Again, because the lack of interest in women's pleasure is phenomenally discombobulating. So I think what we do need to do though is really let go of the idea that squirting and orgasms are the same. They're just not. You know, they can happen together, but they mostly don't. And so that would probably be a more helpful way of looking at it, is the squirting is a release, but it's not necessarily an orgasmic release. It's more helpful if we keep our attention on pleasure rather than orgasm, because pleasure can be so many things, whereas orgasm is this very narrow, I must have this experience. So.
Right. One thing I would love if you explained, if we don't have another question, I don't think we do.
No, I don't think we do.
The idea that there are all these different types of orgasms that we see in media and in magazines. You know, to get the 7 types of orgasms, this is what you have to do, and explaining what that is and why it's not, and how the body works. And for you guys, you should just know that Cindy has something called the Atlas of Erotic Anatomy and Arousal.
Yay, you did it.
I did it, which, by the way, is...
It's a video series.
It's a video series. It's inexpensive, and it is something that you will always look back to. I do, and I'm a sex educator. So, so yes, so I would definitely check that out. There's a little plug, but... for people who really, really want serious, I mean, not serious like serious, but like really solid sex education, the Atlas videos on my website, cindydarnell.com, are fabulous for that. So, the bazillion kinds of orgasms. Let me say this simply. There's an element of truth to it, but a lot of it's marketing. So what we know is that every kind of orgasm actually happens in the brain, because the brain is where all the kind of nerves in the body go, and they go on, and they get processed in the brain, not the mind. The mind is a separate thing. We don't know where the mind is. It could be in your elbow, it could be in your boobs, it could be on your knees. Nobody quite knows where the mind is, but the brain is we know where that is. So the brain controls or sends messages to and from all of our vital organs via a variety of nerve networks. And so for an orgasm to happen, the brain has to be involved and the nervous system has to be involved. That's what an orgasm is. It's the brain and the nervous system working together. So is it possible to have an orgasm in your thumb, in your little toe, in your knee? Technically it is. There is some research that says people who've had spinal injuries, people who have had various kinds of accidents where their pelvis loses sensation, there is evidence to suggest that some people have had orgasms in their thumb and their foot and various other places up here in the back of their neck. That can happen, but it is definitely in the minority. Again, this is a question that tends to be asked of vulva owners more than penis owners, because of this notion that women's sexuality is complex. Let me categorically say that women's sexuality is not complicated. No more than men's sexuality. And for ease of the conversation, I'm using men and women, but I'm also including non-binary, trans people, people with all kinds of, genital configurations. Human sexuality it's interesting, it's unique, it's fascinating, it is complex, but women and women's sexuality is no more complicated than anybody else's sexuality. So a lot of this hoo-ha about, vaginal orgasms and clitoral orgasms and cervix orgasms and this and that and da-da-da-da is all of this, right, is just... It tends to make people feel worse than better. So if you're having an orgasm in your foot, in your thumb, in your ear, in your vulva, in your butt, great. Great. Like, knock yourself out. Have fun.
because
missing out.
it's the same thing is happening. It's your nervous system and your brain are going zzz, 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 zzz. That's an orgasm.
Yeah.
So however you get there, whatever it is that you do, if you have an orgasm from it, that is amazing. There is no one superior orgasmic style. There is no one inferior orgasmic style. Generally speaking, for vulva havers, the clitoris is going to be the anatomy that will take you there. For penis havers, it can be penis stimulation. For some, it also can be anal stimulation. But, you know, it can vary. It's the whole notion of clitoral orgasms versus vaginal orgasms really comes from sort of early 20th century psychology that was created by Sis White at the Atlas of Erotic Anatomy and Arousal. It's on my website, cindydarnell.com. Just look at the online courses. You'll see it there. Easy peasy. It just demystifies so much of the BS and the crap that we believe to be true about men are like this and women are like this and that, but you know it all. We've heard it all. And the vast majority of it is just horse shit. It's just lies. So,
yeah, it makes good copy, and it also you're right. It does sort of proliferate that idea that we're complicated, and that not only are we complicated to stimulate for our partners, but also for ourselves. That if we're not achieving the pyramid of desirable orgasms, that we are broken in some way, and that is, like you explained, that is not the case.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, this competition and this sense of, particularly in certain, not all, but certain kind of goddess communities and goddess sort of that scene can get very hierarchical about orgasm and what's what, and is this a good orgasm or a bad orgasm? Is this pure? Is it not pure? And it's really piggybacking on the back of purity culture that tends to dissect women down to this minutia of who's closer to God, who's more spiritual, who's more divine. And if you're into that, I'm not saying that it's bad, but just be very attentive to the fact that a lot of those communities, not all, but a lot of them can really be piggybacking on the back of purity culture and ultimately make us feel worse about ourselves than is actually based in anything true or helpful, frankly.
Helpful, yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, thanks, Cindy. I had a great time talking about orgasms with you. And
me too. Are we done? I don't have a clock set up yet, so I have no idea what the time is.
We are done.
I don't know anything about anything. My whole life is just boxes and junk all over the place right now.
Well, not for long. And I'm about to go get my second vaccination. So
excellent. You might feel a little feeble, just so you know. I had my second one.
More so than I normally do.
I wish you a speedy, thorough recovery through it.
Thank you. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We will be back next week. And same time, same bat time, same bat channel. And we'll come up
and give us some ideas. What do you use? That's what we say in Australia. What do you want to know? What do you want to know? What do you want to know? Tell us what your topics are.
DM us or email us or anything, because we're all just on the same road and want to figure it all out. So.
We really are. Right. And the more you know, the easier sex starts to feel. And I've got a bazillion online courses on my website, and I make them specifically so folks can get the information that they need. So go and check it out.
Check it out, folks. All right.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to unpacking. I've got to go and get some vegetables and then unpack.
Go get your
oh, my life. Who am I? All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening. Bye, wife.
Bye,
see you next time.